Welcome to Behind the Point. I'm Pastor Jeff, and I'm here with Pastor Josue.
Hello, good morning.
How you doing?
I'm well, thank you. How are you?
Things are good.
Good.
Yesterday, we celebrated my wife's Carrie's grandma's 100th birthday, and so that was pretty awesome. We call her Gigi,
incredible.
great grandma, but her name's Evelyn. And so I thought it'd be fun to ask her what her favorite decade was. She's lived a century, 100 years.
That's funny.
And so she said her answer was she would love to go back to the 1940s, and she loves Frank Sinatra. And it was funny because she was talking about other artists, and she's like, and Bing Crosby, but he wasn't up there with the other guys.
Oh my goodness! Wow.
But she loves Frank Sinatra. She got to see him at the Hollywood Bowl when she was in high school. So it was kind of fun talking with her yesterday. But it got me thinking, what has been the favorite year of your life, or season if you don't have an exact year? But if you could go back and live in one period of your life, what would you go back to?
I know what my wife's answer would be. I don't know what mine would be. She always says she would love to go back to high school.
Oh, really?
She
That would be
she
I would hate
loved
that.
She's just, my wife is a very friendly person.
Yeah.
So that was like the most fun time for her, high school. I hated high school. I hated everything about it. So I don't know that. I think probably if I were to give a specific year, I think it's the mile mark years. So maybe the year that my wife and I got married, the year that would have been 2012, the year my son was born, Noah, 2015. That was really cool. It was really special.
Not the other kids, forget them.
Yeah, not forget them. No. Matthew would have been 2017, Olivia 2018. But no, I think those were always fun. My wife and I were just talking about it the other day, that it was really cool when it was just the three of us, her, myself, and Noah. It was like we had just started our family. Like it was just very brand new, and we were like, wow, that was really cool. Obviously, I couldn't imagine my life without my other kids now, but it was cool when you first become a parent, all that first happened. So Noah was born when I was 30, when I turned 30. So he was, that's how I keep track of his age. If I'm 40, that means it's
I
10
do that
years
with
ago.
my dad. I had to do that with my dad.
Yeah. But so it was just cool to see like all that happen when I was 30. I think I was 27 when we got married-ish, right around there. And then, that's probably what I would go back to, or the one that I love the most, to answer your question. Yeah.
I definitely would not go back to high school or junior high. There's little pieces I liked in those seasons, but that just sounds frustrating.
It does.
I was thinking about, I knew what question I was asking. I think around the season when Carrie and I were married pre-kids. I'd love to go back to that for a little bit.
Yeah.
And thinking around 2014, I was working at Cal Baptist already, so I love my job. It was fun being married, no kids yet, no stress. We got to travel a little bit that year. So I would probably go right now. That would be my answer because my kids are still little.
Yeah.
But I'm sure as like time goes on, I'll want to go back to like this time of my life when I have my little guys with me and stuff.
If I were to go back to that time when Stephanie and I were just married, I would want to know what we did with our time.
Oh, I know.
I think back now and I'm like,
You're like,
what did we do with all of our free time?
Yeah, you always felt like you were busy.
I don't have any time right now. It's like, what did we do then when we had no kids?
Yeah.
What were we doing? I would love to know what I did with all that time. I was clearly reckless with it. Yeah.
More gym time. More TV, binge watching shows.
If for nothing else than to find out what on earth did you waste your time on? Because man. So
that's good.
Good question.
Well, we are continuing our series in Sermon on the Mount. And this was part 2 of a 2-weeker.
Yes.
So you've been talking about 6 ways to develop kingdom thinking. And so last week you talked about the first 3. So we develop kingdom thinking when we magnify the cost. Number 2 was when we avoid the second look. Number 3, when we don't look for loopholes. And then this week we started with number 4. We develop kingdom thinking when we don't play with technicalities. And this section was, or this topic was based on Matthew 5:33-37. Jesus is talking about oaths or promises. And he says, all you need to say is simply yes or no. Anything beyond this comes from the evil one. And I love that the proverb you shared, the Jewish proverb, where they say a half-truth is a whole lie. And so even withholding information intentionally and manipulating people, like that's really in the same category here. But you asked us a question to think about. You asked us to imagine what the world would look like if we were entirely honest. And you said something about we might be worried what that would look like because we lived in a culture that's so used to half truths or covering things up.
Yeah.
But my question for you is, how can we be completely honest without being rude? And so I think of, for example, someone cooks for you and you don't like it, but they ask, how do you like my cooking? Or do these pants make me look fat? Or, something that's a question where you're like, if I was totally honest, it may insult them. So how do we be completely honest without being rude?
That's a good question.
I'm asking the wrong guy.
What's that?
I said I'm asking the wrong guy.
Yeah, probably. I guess I would start with defining our terms there. If someone were to make a meal for me, for example, one of the things I tell my wife,
good?
Yeah, what is good?
You just go into hypothetical.
No, there's two sides that I would bring up. My parents raised my sister and I. You say thank you no matter what, always.
Sure,
thank you.
Yeah.
So that it starts from a position.
They did something nice or made an effort to bless you.
It starts from a position of gratitude, always. So you start there, but also from a position of love. So, for example, my wife, admittedly, she'll tell you any day she's not the best cook. Now she can cook and she does a great job when she does. But she'll tell you any day, she's like, I'm not the better cook. Like I am the better cook between the two of us. And usually I'm the one who cooks more. But anytime she cooks, I make it a point and I'll tell her, that's the most delicious thing you ever made. I'll always tell her because it's I'm not lying. I'm not lying. But it comes from a position, number one, of gratitude. Thank you for making a meal.
She knows that you're just saying that
and number two, I'm thankful that you love me enough to make me a meal. And I want to be very careful because I don't want to undo what I did yesterday. But yes, we are called to always be honest. But that is to the extent of we should not be for dishonest gain.
Okay.
So, for example, the illustration I gave of the rolling stops, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, all that stuff. Those are the technicalities. We use them so that we achieve a dishonest gain. It's not a dishonest gain if if my wife burned the meal or did something or oversalted or did something. And I'm just like, hey, I default back to the two, gratitude and thankfulness. And thank you so much, the gratitude and love, excuse me. Thank you so much for making the meal, and I appreciate that you had me in mind as you were cooking this meal.
Yeah, but was it good?
It was good because it was a meal. It was good.
What's the
alternative?
Under your napkin?
I know. Why does the dog look full? So no, no. I would say I don't think that is considered. I don't know that I would say that that's a dishonest deal to say, like, if you didn't like the meal, that's fine. Someone else may have, but was it good? Like, you can go back to that, go into all kinds of mystery and whatnot. But I don't think it requires us to lie to the person. If there's a dishonest gain in there, that's what Jesus is ultimately talking about. And we don't want to get to the point where it goes too legalistic with things like that. One of the ladies even asked me yesterday this question about, specific to one of the later points, the idea of abuse. And she asked the question, like, if you're in an abusive relationship and, the person asks you, well, where are you going? Are you not supposed to be like, oh, I'm just going to go to the store if you're really trying to avoid? I'm like, well, we're not talking about safety here. Jesus is talking specifically about just those lies that are for dishonest gain. So you can be honest all the time without being rude. And it'd be different if I said to my wife, this was disgusting. What on earth would make you think this is good for consumption? Like, that's different. That's to answer your question. Well, that's just being real out of the way. But that's even the point of your question. How do we be honest without being rude? Yeah. That's me being rude. Yeah. I could just sit there and say, yeah, thank you for the meal. It was great. And leave it at, because it was a meal at the end of the day. Yeah. Was it to my satisfaction? Was it the way I would have seasoned it? The way I would have, the combinations of food? Maybe not. Was it a meal though? Yes. Did they do it because they loved you? Yes. Okay. Yeah. You say thank you and you demonstrate that love. So I don't know that I'm answering your question because I know it spoke more to the rude side.
No, that's okay. I think there might be a time the kindest thing could be to protect them at moments, though, if it could lead to future embarrassment.
Sure.
So I'm thinking maybe it's the food, maybe it is really bad.
Well, and to your point about the
Then
clothes,
it's like,
right?
oh,
Yeah.
should we have our friends over? Should I make this when Damien comes over?
Mm-hmm.
Why don't you make the pizza instead? Or the clothing thing. Do I look bad in this? Do you like, if someone's not a good singer, do you let them keep going until they embarrass themselves? Or I don't know. So sometimes I think there is a point to creatively and kindly say it. I think your strength is more this. Or
there's the two kinds of honesty that we're talking about. Are we talking about a dishonesty as in you're scheming something? Or are we talking about an honesty as in because I love you, I need to be truthful with you about this? There's two big different things there. Very distinct differences. It's not fair to combine them together like they're the same thing. But and a lot of this goes hand in hand with what our culture is dealing with. Do we honestly, not to bring up a whole Pandora's box here, but for example, the whole pronoun issue, the names, the transgender stuff, is it the loving thing to affirm that, or is it the loving and honest thing to say, hey, here's what Scripture teaches us, and here's what I want to abide by? That's the loving thing to do, is to be honest with them, not to affirm further sin. You're just compounding one sin after another at that point. So that if we're talking, it depends on which kind of honesty are we talking about. Are we talking about for my own gain or because I love the individual? That is an important factor.
Yeah. What do you think about, since you brought that one up, and that is a bigger, an increasing issue in our society, what do you think about if someone, let's say that someone asks, like, I want you to call me she, her now, and it was a biological male, to say, can I call you just by your first name? Like, can I call you Stan or whatever the name is? Yeah. Because then you could just, conversations, if I was telling Damien about him, I would just say, Stan said this, and then Stan did this. I don't even have to say she or he or whatever. So it's not like egging them on. I don't need to like go out of my way to say he if that's going to offend that person. But I also don't need to use pronouns that I think are untrue. Is that fair? And is that like
I would not,
or do you do it differently?
No, my personal conviction is I'll call them by their name. Period.
Yeah. Okay.
That's
so
what I'll do.
What I was saying,
but it's not. There's a difference. You added the element of they want me to refer to them as this. I don't agree with that one bit.
My point is I wouldn't call if it was a man that wanted to be called she, I wouldn't.
But the point is I will not continue a lie. I won't further continue a lie. If I know that individual is a man or an actual woman, whichever one, I'm not going to have that person dictate to me how I refer to them when they're not present.
You wouldn't even ask.
No, I wouldn't. I wouldn't.
You're not
going to
use the pronouns. You're just going to use their name.
Well, but even if I did, the point is you don't use the pronouns with the person. You use it when you're talking about them to someone else.
Yeah.
So I'm not gonna, if I'm talking with you, I'm not going to say, hey, he, how are you? I'm going to say, hey, Jeff.
I
say your name. And if I were talking to someone else, I would say, well, Jeff mentioned this. And that's just the natural way we have conversations. But I would not, if they say, well, I want to hear my pronouns, I'm not going to abide by that because I know that to be dishonest. And I would not continue that in a further conversation. And if they have an issue with that, that's a conversation I'm glad to have with that person, because it's like, listen, if you want me to respect your rights, I need you to respect mine as well. And that goes entirely against my convictions, my biblical convictions. And unfortunately, I can't do that. I'm sorry. But I'm not going to sit there and be rude to them either. I wouldn't be a jerk about it. I'd be like, listen, it's not something I can do. I'm sorry.
That's fair.
Yeah.
All right. The next question or the next point you made was we develop kingdom thinking when we are prepared to give up our rights. And this is based on Matthew 5:38-42. There's a lot of really powerful lines in here. Jesus tells us to turn the other cheek instead of retaliating. He tells us to go the extra mile and to give to anyone who asks. And you had some good clarifications in there. This is really for the individual, interpersonal relationships, not all of these things on a large society scale.
Correct.
I like how you said that we're not supposed to ask, do they deserve that? And so the point is, really treat them with grace and with love. We should give more than the law requires, was your point. Have you ever heard pastors, we talked about, I kind of know your answer because we talked about this a little bit, but some pastors teach about turning the other cheek and some of these other things in a little bit different way. And so I'll just explain it for the listeners and then get your take on this. So some pastors say that essentially these things are about actually protecting the dignity of the offended. So hear me out. So turning the other cheek, you talked about it was really a backhanded slap. So if you kind of picture someone backhand slaps you, to turn the other cheek is saying that I'm your equal. If you want to hit me, now I've given you my cheek to slap me the right way. And so it's basically turning something demeaning into now we should have equal status. Giving your coat, some pastors say this is really like talking about addressing greed. And so if they ask for my shirt and then I give them my coat also, then I'm left essentially naked. And so that's going to shame the person who has taken too much from me. And then in the same way that carrying the soldier's load, going the extra mile with them, if we do that choosingly, then it's going to essentially kind of embarrass the person that was offending us to make us do that. So their point essentially is that it's almost like a nonviolent response, but it's kind of almost a petition to stand up for my dignity. Any thoughts on that? That's a different than your point, but is there truth in that? How do you respond to that?
I think on a general level, sure, there's truth to it, but I do think that's out of context to what Scripture meant. Yeah, I think it is a slightly politicized version of what Jesus meant.
It kind of gets into a bit of a social gospel.
That's exactly what it does. Yes, it goes further into that. The whole point that Jesus was making contextually there was specifically that, to give up my rights.
Yeah.
But part of what you just mentioned in that is I'm doing this to reestablish my rights.
Right.
And it's like to draw the line in the sand. And the whole point of it is that we don't have that. The point of giving to those who ask is that I give up my right to give conditions. Of giving up my tunic, it's I give up my right culturally within the context of what we're talking about here is everyone had a right. Even the most homeless person in biblical time, that culture, they had a right to basically chonies, underwear, like a loincloth, a tunic, which was your first cover, then you have a coat over that and a head covering. That was the bare minimum that everyone had a right to. And the point that Jesus is saying is if they take your coat, they take your tunic, give them the coat as well. Say, I'm giving up my bare minimum rights for you. Yeah. Walking the extra mile, I'm giving up my rights. Like, I know that I'm entitled to this, but let me just show you, I'm not doing this just the bare minimum. Right. Yeah. I'm going to keep going and so forth. The turning the other cheek. Listen, man, if I really hurt you, here, I deserve another one. Go for it. I'm giving up my right to want to fight back. Yeah. Instead of me slugging you back, now you can get two. That's and I'm not. So, anyways, that's how I would answer that question. But I'm intrigued by what you're mentioning here. So, help me understand. How is it that turning the other cheek says I'm your equal? I heard you explain it, but help me understand that.
Yeah, so the backhanded slap is demeaning.
Yeah.
Where it's like, if I were to stand up, it's kind of like, it's almost like if, I almost think of Captain America, when he's weak, he gets beaten down and then he stands up and it says, I could do this all day. So it's almost like I'm standing up and now if you're going to strike me again, you're going to do it like a man who has worth. So it's just kind of, for whatever reason, the front hand slap is less demeaning. Like that's something you would do to an equal versus a backhanded you would almost do to like a slave or just someone less than you. So
I'm still not sure I understand the difference.
Well, I guess it's
you're making a distinction between a backhanded and an open-handed slap.
Correct.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I was like, I'm not sure how a second slap says.
Yeah, because
I'm your equal now.
You slap me, my head shifts. And now if I turned, you have to slap me that way.
I see. Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. I wasn't understanding the connection. Okay, gotcha.
So I think there's maybe some things culturally there, but I like your point a lot better. And I agree that that's more contextually what Jesus is getting at. It's the whole sacrifice. I'm not retaliating. I'm not having to like stand up for myself. I'm going to let God do that piece. The point is that I'm going to represent him. Jesus didn't get up on the cross and say like, look, I'm doing all these things to shame you. He was carrying out the sacrifice to live and to love so that we could have life.
Well, and
so
I think that's the best point
Yeah.
you've made right there. Everything that Jesus suggests that we do, turning the other cheek, going the other mile, giving him the tunic, giving to who asks, is exactly what he did. And it was not meant so that he could say, I am your equal.
Correct.
It was never meant so that he could say, here's what social justice looks like. It was to be humble, to be a servant, to be the last, to be the weak, to be the smallest, right? To demonstrate that. So contextually, I think it fits best the other way.
I agree.
But in a general principle, it makes sense.
Yeah.
There is part of what was used even in the civil rights movement. It was this idea of the nonviolent resistance, but a lot of it was exactly that. Just stand there and take it. That's what it is. Turn the other cheek, right?
And it does embarrass. I mean, when we live this way, then it does expose the injustice. Instead of just fighting back, it's look what these people are doing to me. It's almost kind of the I think about loving your enemies is kind of like heaping coals on their head, burning coals.
Right.
It's like when we respond in the countercultural way, then it does get people's attention.
Right.
Why are they not retaliating? Why are they not lashing back at me? Why are they not, throwing a punch back? And it leaves that person questioning. Right. And then ultimately, hopefully, those questions point to the way, the truth, and the life, to Jesus.
Absolutely.
So, the last point you made was we develop kingdom thinking when we strive for godliness. And this was based on Matthew 5:43-48. Jesus tells us to love our enemies. So he says, it's not just loving your neighbors, the ones that we choose, but it's loving our enemies. And then he ends that by saying, be perfect as your heavenly Father is perfect. So a lot of that revolves around love. I was curious, why did you choose the word godliness for your point? Striving for godliness instead of putting something in there about love. So like my one thought I proposed to you when you were writing your message was love the unlovable or something like that. But why did you really wanted to stick with godliness? What was your thought behind that?
I pulled that word specifically because of the quote from Leon Morris, what he talks about. There's always more to strive for. And I think that's what we have. Love is something that we can always strive for. And I just in the most practical sense, I was trying to make the point be different than the actual verbiage of the text. So in the calls that Jesus gives to everyone in that text, it's, you've heard it said. So here's what you've already known. Love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I tell you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you. Jesus was telling them to do something very different. But it wasn't just because I get to, unlovable can be subjective. Admittedly, godliness can too. But we have a very clear outline of what godliness looks like in Scripture, whereas the unlovable can still be subjective in that sense. Because to me, that person might be lovable. To you, it might not be love. That person might not be unlovable. Godliness was a higher goal, a higher standard, I guess, to shoot for, versus loving the unlovable. And because again, the unlovable can be subjective, and what love toward that individual looks like can be subjective. So, but I stuck primarily because of the quote for Leon Morris, that we always have something to strive for. If I never encounter someone who's unlovable, then I could say that I've attained that goal, right? I love everybody. But the goal of striving for more it comes across it. It does. I think it goes deeper, it goes higher. And it's a continual challenge to be more like Christ.
Sure. And we know that last line, I mean, you kind of really bounced off that last line, the last verse there, be perfect. Yeah. That's an intimidating verse for us. And then, I mean, even godliness itself, to strive for godliness, how do we navigate that without just becoming so frustrated with ourselves? It's easy, we're aiming for something higher than we could ever achieve this side of heaven. So how do we keep from, and sorry for any Debbies, but how do we keep from becoming a Debbie Downer, where it's just, man, I'm always a failure. And being depressed even or something because we're not achieving what we're striving for.
Well, I think the goal is, what will be helpful is to remember that the goal is to be godly, not God.
Sure. Yep.
We'll never
Yeah, good
we'll never be
distinction.
that one. So we're going to
Yeah.
be godly. We're going to be as close to Christ as possible. Even if Jesus were standing physically in this room now, I would never be him, but I can be as close to him as possible. And so no matter what, by definition, because I am not Christ, I will fail. I will make mistakes. But we can be encouraged with the fact that Christ says, I am with you always. And it's even in the screw-ups, Christ is there. And my personal conviction and my theology, I think we're both on board with this, is my sins and my mistakes won't separate me from the Lord.
Yeah.
Nothing
Nothing
of that.
can.
Nothing can. Yeah. So
heights nor
it's
depth.
we're gonna screw up. I don't want to say plan for it, but don't be surprised by it.
Yeah.
I would rather put it that way.
Aim for perfection, plan for perfection. As we stumble, get back on track.
There you go. Exactly. And it's don't be surprised when you fail. Being a Christian, being a follower of Christ does not mean we're perfect. In fact, if we were, there wouldn't be much significance to it. It's the fact that we're not, and we strive still for that godliness, for that perfection, for that Christ-like way of living and way of thinking that makes us different.
Yeah.
It's, again, if we were to go back to what we were talking about with this idea of not fighting back, it's those graphic images that we see of the people that are being beaten by these water hoses. The dogs are being sent over them. It's that submission, not their ability to overcome it, but their willingness to endure it, their willingness to get back up, to fight for what they know is right, to do the right thing. That makes them stand out. That's how we remember that. In the same way, it's us drawing closer to Christ. Even though we mess up, we're being beat down by the world, we can still get right back up and continue to be as Christ-like as possible. We may mess up, own up to it, apologize where you need to, and start to move on again. It's always moving forward, always shooting for that goal, for that godliness, to continue to do that. If you mess up, that's okay, man.
Yeah.
We all mess up. We all mess up. And I almost find that encouraging. That I'm not alone. It's like, listen, okay, everybody messes up. We've all got heroes of the faith. I think of Billy Graham, for example. Someone like he would tell you any day he was like the biggest screw up. He made so many mistakes.
Paul.
Paul,
He's like,
exactly.
I'm the worst of sinners.
Yeah. Everybody makes mistakes, and so I find that encouraging.
Yeah.
Not as an excuse to go out and sin, but if I screw up, if I make mistakes,
You think of all those
still grace there.
Yeah, all the apostles shared their stories with others. That's why we know about Peter's shortcomings and David's shortcomings. Yeah. Like they knew that it's recorded publicly, and they shared that because that was part of their testimony of God's grace in their life.
Absolutely. Yeah.
We went to a conference and were able to see John Maxwell. And I loved when he was talking about just focusing on that day. He's like, if yesterday was the worst day, what do you say? He's like,
get over it.
Yeah, get over it. Today's a new day.
It's like that ended at midnight.
Yeah, it ended at midnight. Yeah. If you had the best day and you accomplished great things, get over it.
That ends at midnight.
So I think that keeps us grounded.
Absolutely.
Just, we're going to do our best for today, move forward no matter how yesterday went, good or bad. And today's a new day to strive for godliness. So any last minute thoughts as we wrap up these 6 ways of kingdom thinking?
I would just continue the same encouragement and challenge I offered us yesterday. Continue to find ways to develop that kingdom way of thinking. We've got 6 amazing examples of things that we can do by avoiding those loopholes of staying away from technicalities and so forth. All these things we can do. We can do all of them. They are attainable with the help of Christ. They are attainable. I'd be curious to hear of the change, the difference that it makes in each and every one of our lives. And I'm still working on each and every one of these every single day. But they definitely make a difference in our life. I'd love to hear about it. If anybody wants to share those, I got a couple emails even this week of stuff like that people are telling me like, hey, this is why this is happening. Thanks for that. And it's just encouraging. So I would encourage people to continue with that road. Don't ever allow complacency, any form of stagnancy to develop in your relationship with Christ.
Perfect. Well, we have an email for our podcast, podcast@centerpointchurch.church, or you could email me at Jeff at the same link there, Jeff@centerpointchurch.church. We would love if you ever have questions, you could send them in, and we're hoping to do a Q&A, like a whole episode of that coming up here soon. But we would love to know your thoughts and talk about the things that are most relevant for you. Otherwise, thank you so much for listening. Continue to do so, and we hope that you have a great week. God bless.
Bye-bye.